So I wanted to finish up actually with the old mayors and get to the modern day mayors, but the fucking video cut me off. So I'm gonna just finish it up right now. So I'm finishing up the fucking John Henry Whalen's his political machine. John Henry Whalen's this Confederate dude. He's a political boss in Louisville for about at the turn of the century, from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. And he was able to get 4 mayors elected. He's a fucking corrupt boss. He's able to just discount primaries. If he didn't, think his guy was going to win, he would just fucking say the whole election's off, and then people would just listen to this asshole because he controlled things. He controlled even the fucking circuit court. The circuit court validated his fucking, his intimidation and abuse of fraudulent elections. So him creating fraudulent elections. A lot of people were fucked over because of fraudulent elections. Paul C. Barth was eventually kicked out because of John Henry Whalen, the Buckingham boss, right? So the Buckingham boss was able to get P. Booker Reed elected, William O. Head elected, John H. Bushmeyer elected, and Paul C. Barth. So John Henry Whalen, the Buckingham boss, was able to get 4 fucking Confederate mayors elected to Louisville. Confederate fucking mayors, right? Fucking white supremacists here in the fucking chocolate city of Kentucky. Other mayors, that's Neville Miller is known as the flood mayor because he resided over the 1937 flood successfully, and also Andrew Brodus desegregated public parks in Chickasaw. So I'd already talked about P. Booker Reed. I didn't see much. William O. Head, he had he passed a law against the landlords, so that was something. Still not. He was in there, for 5 years and really didn't do shit. And then you had John H. Bushmeyer. And John H. Bushmeyer, he's a bastard, okay? So he's mayor, 1913 to 1917. He's born in Louisville, Kentucky, dies here. Residence was on River Park Drive. He's a physician. And he's Louisville Mayors High School, MD degree, U of L, practicing medicine. President of Board of Aldermen. He's politics, doing all this fucking school and shit. Elected mayor in 1913 with the support of the John Henry Whalen's Democratic machine. Bushmeyer's administration quickly became bogged down in the racial issues of the time, signing a 1914 ordinance to bar blacks from living in white neighborhoods and vice versa. So, John H. Bushmeyer, fucking Confederate, put in there by Confederates, acting Confederately. The law is challenged by the Louisville chapter NAACP. The case Buchanan v. Wardley went to the Supreme Court and has ruled the ordinance is unconstitutional. We have housing today. We're still relatively segregated with our housing today. Back in 1914, he wanted to make a law. No white person could be in a black neighborhood. No black person could be in a white neighborhood. Supreme Court says, get the fuck out of here. He was voted out of office in 1917, and he's the last machine-era Democrat mayors of Louisville. Died in 1935 and buried in St. Louis Cemetery. So John H. Bushmeyer, fuck John H. Bushmeyer. Him and Andrew Brodus are like the exact opposite. Andrew Brodus segregates the public parks, so everybody could be in the public parks, when before it was just Chickasaw Park. Black folks could only go to Chickasaw Park. Now they can go to all the parks. That's Andrew Brodus. Okay, so Andrew Brodus, Wilson Wyatt, these guys are the opposite of what we had seen in the beginning, at the turn of the century, when you have all this Confederate fucking influence, in Louisville politics. And he signs a law straight up saying white people can't live in black neighborhoods, black people can't live in white neighborhoods. What's the big deal? Big deal, it's fucking illegal, and you can't do shit like that. So 1937, you have Neville Miller. He's the mayor of Louisville from 1933 to 1937. His father, Shackelford Miller, was Chief Justice on the Kentucky Court of Appeals, which is the highest state appellate court. He was valedictorian of his 1912 class at Louisville Mayors High School, earned a bachelor's degree from Princeton University, and a law degree from Harvard Law School. Smart motherfucker. Neville Miller practiced law in Louisville, and his father and brother, Shackelford Miller Jr., and the firm Miller & Miller, was elected president of the Kentucky Bar Association in 1924. However, he primarily taught law during this time, became the first dean of the University of Louisville School of Law. The first fucking dean, Neville Miller, first fucking dean of the School of Law. President of Kentucky Bar, went to Harvard Law School, man, Neville Miller. After being active in the party for years, he was narrowly elected mayor as a Democrat in 1933, ending 15 years of Republican domination of the office. which is actually good news. I mean, since the fucking Bushmeyer, Bushmeyer, Wemo Heads, and P. Booker Reeds want to see some fucking Republicans in office. You have all these goddamn Confederate, fucking corporate Confederates. The Republicans, at least, were Lincoln Republicans, so they were for equality for black and whites. Okay, so Neville Miller, he's a very credentialed man, very successful. He led the city during the worst years of the Great Depression, right? He's mayor from 33 to 37. 29 is when it all crashed. And he helped reorganize the city finances for the changing times. Miller is best known as the flood mayor for his leadership during the Ohio River flood in 1937, the worst in the city's history. So 37 flood was the worst flood we've seen. He directed evacuations and relief efforts and made nationwide appeals for donations and volunteers over the radio. Due to his use of radio during the flood crisis, Neville Miller briefly attained some national celebrity, and after a brief stint at Princeton, served as president of the National Association of Broadcasters from 1938 to 1944, spearheading the radio industry support of the war effort. He practiced communications law in Washington, D.C. from 45 until his retirement in 74. He also served as the director of the Water Company and the boards of the Louisville Free Public Library, the Park Board, and the Civil Service Board. And he's buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. So he's the fucking flood mayor, and he got a lot of people to help him and shit. He was there for 4 years, but I don't really see anything that he accomplished. He seems to be just about his credentials and just about stacking up his fucking shit. Andrew Brodus, and I think this finishes up. There's a lot more mayors out there, but really none of these really stuck out. I didn't know any of these until I had to read into them, and so I don't know. I think it's unremarkable to have unremarkable mayors. The local person is who's going to be fighting on our behalf when it comes to the state and the federal government, and I wanted to know that my guy is my guy. Greg Fisher. He's strapping, young man, blue eyes, right, looking good, and talks like a fucking asshole. Greg Fisher just talks like an asshole. He talks like he's bullshitting you. He talks like he's lying to you. He does this monotone bullshit. Fuck you. I know what you're doing. You're talking to me like an asshole. Talk to me like a fucking person. But he's got the bullshit people. It's the name of the game. It's the name of politics. He feels like he's manipulated all these people. He put $2.5 million in this campaign. Now he's fucking mayor, right? Gonna be mayor for life, maybe. Andrew Brodus. He's mayor of Louisville from 53 to 57. He born and died in Louisville. He served in the Navy during World War I. He attended Center College in Danville. Did not graduate, leaving 2 years in 1921 to work in his family's laundry business, becoming vice president of it in 1930. He was elected to the Board of Aldermen in 1933 as a Democrat mayor in 1953. So he was on the Board of Aldermen for 20 years. His administration is remembered for the Malin Plan, a failed attempt to annex large portions of Jefferson County, which were beginning to develop quickly as suburbs of Louisville. Oh shit. So Andrew Brodus tried to annex other portions of Jefferson County, which we eventually did in 2003 with the city merger. And he also signed an order officially ending racial segregation in Louisville's public parks and pools in 1955. So in 1955, that's when black and white folks could go to the park and go to the pool together. After his term as mayor, he served as the chairman of the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee under Mayor Bruce Hoblitzel and City Defense Director Frank W. Burke starting in 1969. He died of a heart attack in 1972. Buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. The mayor, Andrew Brodus, a life-saving station, is named in his honor. It's a former Coast Guard station. It's named after Andrew Brodus, right? So Andrew Brodus, fucking, in terms of the racial progress, ended segregation with the public parks. Wasn't just Chickasaw Park anymore. Now you could go to any park you wanted to. Let's talk about Jerry Abramson, okay? So I've talked about all the old ones. We talked about fusionists, people who combine different elements of the parties, progressive and Republicans. He was a fusionist. David L. Beatty, Waterworks. Unitarians, people who have no political parties. So we learned some new terms, right? We learned about a lot of the old mayors, some of the significant ones, at least most of the significant ones. There's everybody does something in it, so I didn't touch on every one of them, but overall, really, the list is unremarkable. They only had a few terms or years to accomplish anything, and most of them didn't accomplish shit. But That was before Jerry Abramson, okay? Jerry Abramson, he ain't a boss, but he's a boss, okay? He was able to get elected, and because he was democratically legitimate, he was able to, you know, consolidate all of his power. There's the mayors that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the most recent mayors, the 5 most recent mayors, and William B. Stansbury, Harvey I. Sloan, Jerry Abramson, David L. Armstrong, and Greg Fisher are the ones I'm going to be talking about. But Jerry Abramson actually has 2 periods that that's important to point out, because you have Jerry Abramson, who was there for 13 years, and then you had Jerry Abramson, who was there for another 8 years afterwards. So 2003 to 2011, and then David Armstrong was in there for 4 years in between. So he's a fucking Rutherford. I think it's Rutherford B. Hayes. No, Benjamin Harrison. No, Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland, unconsecutive terms. You know, he ran once. He's in there for 13 years. David Armstrong gets in there, then he gets in there again. So Kentucky is known for that. He was allowed to do that because it was a new charter, so any of the old term limits was out the window. It's a brand new charter. He could become a brand new mayor, and and Louisville voted him in because they trusted him. He had been in there before. He knew what he was doing, and, you know, like I said, they trusted him, so they voted him in there again, and he's the one that led the city-county merger 2003. Jerry Abramson also appointed the first black police chief. There was a lot of shit that was going down under David Armstrong's tenure, including the police marching on the streets in protest of the firing of the police chief that David Armstrong had done. But Jerry Abramson comes in and really softens and helps race relations out by appointing Robert White. And Robert White is in Denver, Colorado now. He's no longer the police chief. Now we have Steve Conrad. Steve Conrad is the police chief now, a white man. So, you know, the progress, I guess, I don't know. Sometimes you put a black man in office and they are better for the whites, and sometimes you put a white and they're better for blacks. So, I mean, I feel like you can't just judge a person's race by how well they're going to do for, you know, their race. Jerry Abramson, he's the first Jewish mayor of the city, best known for the Kentucky Derby, and dominated public life since its first election in 1985. So in 85, he becomes mayor of Louisville, and he's known to many as mayor for life, right? He's a prominent Democrat. He was a former president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, so out of all the mayors, he was the president. He got a lot of influence. Strapping, you know, good-looking young man, so I wonder if he was just an honest fucking politician that got power and been a good fucking dude since. I hope. He's actually the lieutenant governor of Kentucky today. So, 2003, the consolidated city-county government was created. He became mayor of a city with a strong history in the slave trade, known for its prominence in national racial unrest. In 1968, Jerry Abramson appointed the city's first black police chief. Born in 1946 in the city, Abramson's formative years were spent working in the family grocery store in its Smoketown neighborhood, an area exemplifying the historical presence of freed slaves and their descendants. He graduated from the city's Seneca High School and then undertook 2 years military service in the Army without seeing combat. Abramson attended Indiana University in Bloomington, where he studied business, economics, and then Georgetown University Law Center, after which he returned to his hometown to practice with Greenbaum Dahl and McDonald PLLC. Like many Democrats of his generation, Abramson's political trajectory began while at university with his campaign for Robert F. Kennedy's iconic 1968 run for the presidency. So Jerry Abramson was actually there with fucking RFK. He's a Democrat with RFK. He was there, right? He was there with fucking RFK. Charismatic, that's when RFK got shot when he ran for that presidency. So Abramson is a charismatic, engaging local politician. Hallmarks of the era have worn off on Abramson after his stint in private law. He secured 2 terms as an alderman on Louisville's Board of Aldermen while serving as general counsel to former KFC proprietor and one-term Democratic Governor John Y. Brown Jr. So, that's a bad thing. Fucking Abramson was fucking defending John Y. Brown Jr. John Y. Brown is a young defender. He owns fucking KFC, you know, like he's a fucking corporate Bolton owned and shit. I don't know. I just don't trust, it's not so much I don't trust him. You could be a businessman, you could be a corporate man, that's fine. But fascism, according to FDR, the man who fought against Hitler's fascism, Nazism, he says that's when business and government collide. When business and government become one, that's fascism. So government should be for the people, but if the businesses and the government get together, then they're going to team up against us, and then that's when we get tyranny.